everyone. Welcome to our first lesson of music theory at Trinity United Methodist Church in Phoenix City, Alabama. First, we're going to start with a question, and I want you to leave your answer in the comments. What is music? And you can define that in your own words. So my personal definition of music is melodies, harmonies, supporting lines, moving lines, all working together in a duration of time to create a piece of art. Now, first of all, let's talk about what is a melody. And well, the answer is quite simple. It's what you sing every Sunday for our hymns. It's the main line that you hear above everything else. Melody comes in different shapes. Music moves in shapes. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it stays static. There's all kinds of different ways music can move and a melody can move. Harmony is what's supporting that line. It may be exactly what goes exactly underneath the line, or sometimes it shifts and changes directions. So think of this one as like melody. Excuse my handwriting. This one can be harmony, which is the supporting notes to the melody. And then sometimes you have lines that move in between. That is called a counter melody. So a counter melody is exactly some weird, complicated things you hear along with the melody that sounds counter to the melody. So, now that I've defined those terms, let's talk about what we read music on. The most important part about reading music is, well, what we call the staff. The staff is comprised of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Now, you may be thinking, yeah, I see those all the time in the United Methodist hymnal that we read out of quite often. And you're right. But with just this information, we can't tell what note goes where, right? There's 5 lines and 4 spaces in between. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 lines, 4 spaces. Think about them going up. We'll even number them. So 1 for the line, 2 for the line, 3 for the line, 4, and 5. This is how we're going to determine where note placement is and where you can hear it. Same thing with the spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces. Just so we make that clear. So what will determine what notes will sound like is what we call a clef. There are 2 clefs that we should mainly be concerned with. There's the treble clef, which reads soprano and alto lines, and then there is the bass clef, which reads tenor and bass lines. So what is a soprano line? Well, a soprano line sounds very high. What is an alto line? An alto line is just a little bit below the soprano line. It's kind of supporting harmonies. What does a tenor sound like? Well, it's a little bit deeper, but also able to kind of sound like a high male voice. And then the bass is obviously what you hear is the lowest sounding, the maybe even rumble part of music that makes it sound supported, right? So, now that we have that established, well, there are 2 clefs that we should be concerned with, as I said. Treble clef and bass clef. So the treble clef, often called the G clef, because it wraps around G, makes our first note to identify a G. Now I will have attached below some practice worksheets on identifying notes in a bass clef and treble clef. We're going to talk about that in the next video. But if you'd like to learn exactly where notes are placed, please refer to that in the description. Now, let's talk about a bass clef. A bass clef is 2 dots and kind of a sad face. And this note right here on the bass clef will be called F. The bass clef is known as the F clef. So the treble clef is the G clef, and the bass clef is an F clef. Now, we're going to get into what it looks like, why these 2 are different, and all of that in the next video. So, this is just a brief introduction on very basic concepts. Music functions on a staff. The clef tells us where the notes are in relationship to each other. I hope to see you in the next video. We will be talking about scales and learn which notes go where on a staff and learn how to read it.